Hey everybody, welcome back. Jesse here for 3Prong Gaming. In today's episode, we're going to continue working on our residency in the AI area. Yeah, so that way our NPC can find a house if one is available. So let's go ahead and get this thing started. Alright, yeah, welcome back. So in the last episode, we kind of set up just a little bit of the basics in our behavior tree to be able to start looking for residency. First, I want to say I hope everybody had a great holiday. I know that I haven't posted a video in, well, it's been about a week and a half, probably almost 2 weeks since I posted a video. But yeah, it was the holiday season. Kids are back in school now, and I'm back on my normal routine. So hopefully everything will be going like normal. So let's go ahead and get this thing started. We got a few things that we got to get going today. So yeah, a few functions, nothing too complex, but yeah, we've got a few things we've got to get done. So let's go ahead and start out here. Let's go ahead and open up our building struct, and we're going to need to add a new one right here, and we will call this one Max Residence. Okay, hit enter. This also will be an integer, just like the max employees here. And each building will dictate how many residents it has. Obviously, the only building that will need residents are like apartments and any other type of residential building. All right, so default we'll just leave at 0. Go ahead and save that. We can close that out. We're not going to need that one again for a while. Okay, so let's just, so we could take a look at it, let's go ahead and open up our behavior tree, because we're going to have to be in there anyways. And you can see we need to save our NPC, but that's just because it updated the struct for, I don't know why it needs to be saved actually, but yeah, we'll Control S and save all that. Open up our behavior tree here, and of course it'll open it up in my other monitor. And this is where we left it last time, right here. We just set all this up right here. We got our AI state going. So today we're just going to we're actually only going to create one task in here, but there's going to be several functions that need to be going on with that. So what we need to do, let's go ahead and open up, let's start here in the building master. I kind of know what we need, obviously. I know what we're going to need for this. I'm trying to lay out the best logical way to show you guys my thought process, but yeah, probably not going to explain it too well, or at least have a good flow. But let's go into our buildings. Open up your building master. Okay, just like we did, we can go ahead and close out assign employees, hire employees. Just kind of like what we did here with the get employees function. Right, we're going to have to know what we're going to need to do. We're going to have to need to know the same thing for residents. Okay, this is pretty much just like an occupancy type function. Let us know who's in the building. We just are segregating it to where one is for employees and the other is going to be for residents. We may end up having a third one in the future, just kind of depends on how it goes. But let's go ahead, and since pretty much everything's already here, let's just go ahead and right click over here on the get employees and do duplicate, and we will call this one get residents. Okay, hit enter, and let's go ahead and open that up. And what we're going to need now, obviously we don't need employees, we're going to need a new variable here called residents. So go ahead and select that and do residents. And again, it's going to have to be, we probably could have just, you know what, let's do that. Let's delete that. Let's just Control W the employees variable, and let's call this one residents. Hit enter, and it's going to be, by copying it, it's pretty much the same thing, just with a different name. It's just got to be the NPC blueprint variable type right here. And if you want to add a tooltip, this is the array of current residents. Okay, and compile that. Come on, there we go. And we can go ahead and delete this right here. And actually, we could just right-click the employees, replace variable employees with residence. There we go. Select this. Let's go ahead and just change this now and erase any parts that say employees and do resident, list of residents. Same thing with this one. Get rid of employees, residents, and has residents. There we go. Simple as that. Same thing, different array of functions right there. So we got that. What we need to do now is, what do we need to do now? Now I need to go back through my thought process. We need to open up our residential master BP now. So go ahead and select that. If you get this, not a problem. Just open full blueprint editor right here. Okay. So we need a way to, let's go ahead and just delete all this. Get that out of the way. If we need it, we'll bring it back later. And what we need to do is we need to have a way to get vacancy for this building. All right, it's residential. We need to find a way if we added the max residence for the building. So now we need a way to be able to know if this particular residential building has vacancy. Okay, so let's create a new function here. We'll call this one get vacancy. Okay, we don't need any inputs on it, and we do need an output. We'll give it an output. It'll be a Boolean. We'll call it has vacancy. All right, so go ahead and just slide this over like so. We're not going to have to hook up any execution. We probably could make this a pure function, but I'm going to leave it regular because I think we'll need the execution pins. So go ahead and right click in here now, and that get, let's see, what is this? The get residence. We probably could have put this on the residential master BP instead of the master. But yeah, I'm not going to. We're going to leave it here because the building master being the super parent might be easier down the road to call this off of the master than the residential. If anything, it'll save us having to cast from if we've got a reference to the building master that we want to call this from, we can always cast to the residential, but it'd probably just be easier to leave it on the master and not, save ourselves a cast in the future. Okay, so right click and let's go ahead and get residence, the function we just created right there. Right, so we're presented with all three of these. Did we not compile and save that? Get residence. They'll say residence. Why in the world? Compile it. Get employees. What does that say? Get residence. I don't understand that. Get residence. Get residence. Get residence. I don't understand that. Let's compile, save it. Let's close this back down and open this back up. Control S, save everything. Just because that was really kind of odd that it still shows employees right there. Get residence. And for whatever reason, it still shows. But you double click it and it opens up the right one right here. So I don't understand why. That is really pretty strange. But you double click it. I'm not going to worry about that right now. You double click it so you know it's going to the right function. It's getting our residence right here. So that's fine. I don't know why it's doing that. That's weird. It didn't do it in my other one in my cheat sheet. Anyways, go ahead and right click. We need build struct to get building struct. Go ahead and drag off this one, break it, and we'll just go ahead and expand this. We've got our new max residence right there. So what we need to do is just pull off of this and make sure that the number of residents, it should say residents, not employees, the number of residents in this particular building is less than the max residence. Okay, so if we have this pretty much tells us, do we have space in here? Less residents than what the max residence is all about. And then just plug that straight into the has vacancy right there. And that is it for that. We can go ahead, and this is one of the reasons why I like breaking them out, is because if you're only using like one pin right here, you can hit this and collapse it and make it a little bit smaller. If you just broke out this struct and made it bigger, you wouldn't be able to collapse it. So it doesn't really matter how you do that, but that's how I did it right there. Compile it and save it. Hopefully that changes in the future. I don't know. That's kind of weird. All right. So get vacancy right there. What I want to do with this, though, before we get out of this, is I want to make this a protected function. Okay. It's going to seem kind of redundant because we're going to create another function in the residential master here just now that's going to call this one, but I'm going to keep this one protected. What that means is only the residential master and its children will be able to call this function. All right. So we won't be able to call this from anywhere else. That is not a child of the residential master BP. All right, if we set it to private, then only the residential and none of its children or the parent could call it. Okay, so let's go ahead and create one more variable. Like I said, it kind of seems redundant, but that's kind of the point of object-oriented programming, is to isolate functions and have getters and setters and things like that. Okay, so let's create a new one right here, a new function. Where is it? New function. We'll call this one apply for residency. Now this will be the function that is called by whoever needs it to get vacancy. All right. You don't have to do this if you don't want to. We could just do get vacancy just fine and leave it. That's up to you. I kind of like it though, because we're checking vacancy with this one. We may need this in the future where we're not applying for residency. It's just kind of nice. And then plus you can rename the functions and know exactly what it's for. This is getting vacancy. And we're going to use this one by the function, by the task, to actually apply for vacancy. Okay, so we need an output, and we'll call the output has actually accepted. We're just going to name it accepted, because if we have vacancy, then the MPC will be accepted for residency because we're applying for residency. Were you accepted on your application? Yes or no? All right, compile it and save it. Make sure it is public, and you can give yourself a description right here if you want. This is is the function for the MPC to apply for residency to a building. There. All right. Save that. Cool. So now what we need to do is, most of our work is going to be done you could do it on the MPC if you want. I'm trying to isolate a lot of the functions on the controller because, well, I don't know. That's just kind of the way I see it. Some things will go on the MPC, some things will go here. But I'm going to put this on the AI controller, the MPC AI controller. Okay, so we need a new function in here. Okay, we'll call this one check for housing. Okay. So what we need to do now is we need our game state. We need to know the housing. We don't have a current availability to our game state. So, and one thing I want to go ahead and do, I realized that we don't need this right here. We don't need use Blackboard, all right, because the way the behavior tree is set up right here, we link the behavior tree to that Blackboard. So it automatically knows. So we don't need to have this use Blackboard in here. So let's just go ahead and delete that and then just plug it in like so. Okay, so now we need a new variable. We'll call this one game state. Make it of type game. Let's do it. What is it called? My game state. Oops. Did it set it right? Yeah, it set it right. Okay. So we got my game state. Let's go ahead and drag this out as a set. Right click, do get game state. Okay, pull off of this, do cast to my game state, and right click on the cast and convert to a pure cast. Okay, because we know it's pretty much always going to cast. There shouldn't, if it doesn't cast, we've got bigger issues than running a fail pin off of this. So it should always cast just fine. Okay, so then we set the game state variable like so. Go back into our check for housing. Grab our game state variable here. Let's get it. Pull this out. And if you remember correctly, we set a variable on the game state called residential buildings. So we want to get that. Okay, so now we need to take this and do a loop. We need a for each loop. We actually want the one with the break. Okay, now there's a couple ways you could do this. The way we're going to do it, obviously, and you can also set this up like we did, if you remember correctly. I know it's been a little while, but if you remember back in the employment stuff we did, we had a little check where it would randomly select a job. It just doesn't take the first one off the list. This one I'm actually going to set up to where it just takes the first one in the list. If it's got vacancy, it's going to take it and run with it. You can do it just like we did with the employment one, where it selects a random housing unit and becomes a resident of that house. That's up to you. You can go ahead and do that. You're more than welcome. Just pretty much follow these steps, or with kind of, like what we did with the other one. You just pretty much add a random integer within range is what you need. All right. Go ahead and reference that if you need to remember. All right. Because this is set, hover over this. It is a building master BP reference. Okay. The function we created for applying for residency is on our residential master. So if we went like this and went apply for, see, we don't get apply for residency right there. So what we need to do is we need to pull off this and we need to cast to our residential master BP. Right click. Let's go ahead and convert this to a pure cast as well. Okay. And then now off of this, we can go apply for residency. That function we just created right there. Go ahead and drag this up and clean it up a little bit. Get rid of mom's spaghetti. There we go. All right. So now we apply for residency. So what we need to do now is go ahead and throw in a branch, because we have a Boolean coming off of this, right? So we just select this. Were we accepted, true or false? All right. If we were selected, actually what we need to do here, we need to create two local variables. Let's go ahead, and this first one we'll call found housing. And we will make this, oops, let me rename this real quick. Found housing, try to stay within my underscore local, stay in my good habits there. Found housing underscore local, make it a Boolean. And then we need one more. We will call this one residence underscore local. And this will be of type residential master BP reference. Compile it and save it. All right. So now we need to take this found housing, alt and drag it in, and we need to set this both on the true and the false. So go ahead and drop two of these in here. Now you're saying we could just run this into one of these and it'll tell us yes or no. And you're right, we could, but you'll see why we don't do that in a second. So if it's true, we found housing. So make sure that one's true. That one is false. All right. Now we grab our residential local, alt and drag it in, and we need a second one in here for both of them. All right. Go ahead and plug in the execution here. So now what we need to do now is we need to take, what do we need to do? We'll take this off of the residential, because we made this a residential variable here, and just plug it into the top one, into the true. Go ahead and clean it up just a smidge. Add a couple reroute nodes. There we go. All right. And then nothing into this bottom one. So now the trick is, what we need to do is we need to pull off of the true and wrap it all the way back around here into the break. So this, like I said, this will allow us to just stop at the first one it finds. It's going to stop and break out of the loop, and that's going to be your new residence, is the very first vacant one it finds. If it doesn't find a vacant one, then it's going to come in here to the false. It's going to set this to false. And the reason why we do this in the for loop body is because if at the very end, we wouldn't necessarily need to run a false a lot of times, but the reason why we do this one is because there could be multiple residents in here that it's going through and checking. And even though it's setting these to false every single time until it finds a true one, it's that last one you worry about. If you don't have these set to false, then, you know, it could not come out correctly. And sorry if I'm a little bit jumbled. It's been a couple weeks since I've done a video. What do you expect? All right, so let's go ahead and right click. Let's do a return node. And on the return node, we're going to need 2 pins. First one, we will call this one did find housing. We'll leave it as a Boolean. Next one, we will call this one house. And we will make this a residential master BP reference, just like so. So then we take our local variables and we just plug them straight in, just like so. Take that one, move that up. There we go. Plug in the execution onto the completed. And that is it for this one, right? Compile it and save it. And yeah, that is it. Let me double check. Cool. That is it. That is it. So now I believe we can go into our behavior tree here and grab this. We need to create a new task, BT task blueprint base. Select that, and let's go out like I usually do, and let's go ahead and rename this right off the bat. We will call this one T underscore find housing vacancy. Hit enter. All right, let's go ahead and open it back up. And node name, let's just call this one find housing for the node name. All right, right click, we need an execute, execute, receive, execute AI. All right, now we're gonna need our CAS off of this. We're actually gonna need both of these. And I was noticing that nowhere did I actually leave both of those reference CAS for both the controller and the pawn. But just go ahead and select one, we'll fix that, Control C, and then jump back into your vacancy, Control V. Obviously, we will rename this just like so. Go ahead and open it up. Right click, create variable pawn. All right, and then we just need to add another pin here for controller, new controller, and this needs to be AI controller, not. Let's see, AI controller, not our custom MPC controller, the regular AI controller reference. Put it in here, and we need to create another variable. We'll call this one controller, and this one will be our NPC AI controller reference. All right, so go ahead and pull off of this one. We will cast to our NPC AI controller. Right click, convert to pure node. Drag that on over here, clean up mom's spaghetti a little bit. All right, and then off of this, we need another branch. So go ahead and select B, control drag these pins, and we'll just plug them into the branch like so. And if it's true, take the true, set it here. And what is true? Well, we need to take our controller, get it just like we did with the pawn, is valid. And really, you could run this other is valid if you want. That probably is the best way to do it, and I just didn't. So all right, so if the controller is valid, true, we don't want to do anything, go that way. If it's not, what we want to do is we want to set our controller to this. All right, just like that, just like we've done with the other one in the past. And yeah, moving forward, so control, save. Got that there, so let's go ahead and click the back arrow here, and I'm going to change those around actually. Let's go like this, take a controller. I want to move it up just so the pins are a little bit straighter. Go back out here. There we go. So now I could just go straight across like that. Oops. Okay. Cool. Running just about right on time. So this will be about perfect. So what we need now, we're going to actually need some Blackboard keys here. So let's go ahead and add a new variable. We'll call this one target location. Blackboard key selector. And make sure it's editable. We'll get that in a second. And then we need destination. Destination. Did I spell that right? Hit enter. One more, and we will call this one. This is going to be a new one. We're going to have to add this to the Blackboard. We could do it now without adding it to the Blackboard. House reference. And go ahead and make all three of those editable. So that way we can go ahead and set them in there. Okay, so now what we need to do is we need to take that function that we just got. So off of the AI controller right here, grab our controller. Let's get it and do check for housing. Okay, so let's go ahead and plug that in. All right, now what we need is we need to set this to a variable. We'll call this one found housing. Okay, and then go ahead and right click on the house, promote that one to a variable, and we'll just call this one house. Okay, and I like right clicking those pins because then you don't have to set the variable type, it automatically does it for you. Clean this up just a smidge. Okay, so now we need a branch. Go ahead and drop in a branch right here. Go like this. So now we'll just go ahead and plug this in right like so. So did we find a housing? And you'll see why we did this in a little bit. We're going to plug this into the finish execute. So that's why we set it to a variable right there. Okay. So did we find a housing? True or false? If we did find a house, what we need now is we need to take this house variable, go ahead and drop it in here and get it, which the house variable is the house that we're passing through here that we found. All right, drag off of this one. We need the entrance, if I can spell, get entrance. Pull off of this. We need to get world location of the entrance. Okay, go ahead and slide these back now. Now we need our target location. Let's get that and set value, Blackboard value as vector. Okay, let's go ahead and plug that into there. Plug this into the true. All right. So now our house reference, we need to grab this, drop this in here. Let's get it. Set this. We're going to make this an object. It's going to be an object. So make a set value as a Blackboard value as object. And then we grab our house variable that we set, drop that in there like so. Okay, so now we need our destination. Go ahead and grab that. Just like we do with all the other ones, we've got the target location, but we set our destination as well. And this needs to be set Blackboard value as object. Plug those in, and the object of our destination will be the house. And the reason why we're setting this as an object right here, so we have access to it later. It'll be in the Blackboard. It'll be constantly stored as a reference. We won't ever have to really check. We won't have to pull the NPC's personal profile to check where their house is at. So it'll just make it easier in the future. That's why we're doing that there. Okay, so now we actually need to do one more function that I forgot. And this one's pretty easy. Let's go ahead and jump back into the residential master and drop in a new function, set new tenant. Okay, and on the input, we'll just go ahead and call this one NPC, and it needs to be of type NPC blueprint reference. All right. go ahead and grab a right click and do residence. We need our residence variable. Let's get it. Pull off of this and do add unique. Plug that in here like so. And what we want to add is what we're going to pass in here. All right, so that's it for that one. Oops, not residence. We need a return node to finish it off. Just like so. All right. Cool. Compile it and save it. Let's jump back into our task. So what we need to do now is just call that function, and we need, where is that off of? That is off the house. Pull off of this. Oops. Pull off of this and do set new tenant. Plug those in, and the NPC will be the pawn. So just go ahead and grab your pawn, plug it in there, just like so. All right, right click, do a finish execute, hit select, pull that down here like so, plug that in, and the success will be our found housing. All right. So that way we only have to have one finish execute. So you could forego the found housing and not use that, and then just run this into the branch. And then right here you can have two finish executes, one off the true that is, well, true for the success, and then one off the false that is false for the success. But that's the way I did it. I don't know why. That's just the way I did it. So grab our target location if it's false. Let's get it. And we want to clear our target location if it's false. And then same thing, just to make sure, we want to take our housing reference. Let's get it and clear this as well. Our destination should not be set, so we shouldn't need to clear it. If we run a problem into it in the future, we can always come back and set it, but I don't think there will be a problem with it. So, and then just take that and plug that into the finish execute. And that is it. That is all we need to do. Compile it and save it. And I'll give you a second to kind of take a look at this. All right, there's that part of it. And there's that part of it. All right. Pretty easy stuff for that. Nothing too complicated. Just we just, you know, it can get a little confusing having all those extra functions doing the little things, but trust me, in the future it's going to be much easier if you just make a bunch of little functions rather than one very large function. So real quick, let's go ahead and drag off of this, and we'll do a weight. Let's pick our T random weight, and let's go ahead and set its maximum weight to 2.0, and then drag off of this and do find housing vacancy. There it is, thank you. And set these target location will be target location, destination will be destination, and housing reference, we haven't set that up, so let's do that. That's the one last thing we need to do today. Select a new key in our Blackboard, make it an object. We will call this one house reference, and it's already set to object. Expand this. From what I understand, this really doesn't work. Object is the base of pretty much everything. Everything's going to be an object in the world, pretty much, okay? But I heard the only thing that really works for this is actor, but it doesn't really matter. We're going to set this to residential master BP. That is fine, because that's what it is. So base class set for that. Save it. Come back out here to the behavior tree. We now have that. So select your find housing. The housing reference there will be our new housing reference right there. So that's it for today's episode. Not too bad on time. I did pretty good. Not too shabby for being a little rusty. In the next episode, we're going to go ahead and we're going to finish this off right in here, and probably get started in here. Pretty much all we need to do right here. If we had a few more minutes, we could easily do it. We're just going to be moving to location, but remember, we're going to have to set this up, because if you remember in this, the way we set this up to be universal is we've got this right here. So we're going to have to actually create the pin here for home when we move to home, so that way when we select or change on the outside what it is right there, what did this happen right there? Oh, see, this broke right there. So that's why I like to go break. Okay, I set this. I'm glad I've seen this. We would have caught this in the next one, but obviously, if you just split the struct right here, when you update your struct, it's gonna break its links. But what is this? We need the employment off of this one. So yeah, it's gonna break its links if you just split the struct. But if you break it, and even if you're, we added the residency. If this was broken like this, it would have just added the residency and it wouldn't have broke that right there. But because we had this split as a struct, yeah, it totally broke it. So anywhere else you may end up finding errors for updating where you broke that out. That's usually why, or when you split the struct, that's usually why I like to break it out, even though it makes it a little uglier. Destination, this needs to be plugged into there, just like so. Yeah, okay, cool. Compile it and save it. So now nothing else should hopefully be broke. But yeah, so we're gonna have to set up the logic here, so it'll take us a little bit to do that. And we don't have that time right now. We're a little over on time today. Not too bad. All right, I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. If you did, please do me a favor, go down and hit that like button. It helps me out a ton. If you're new to the channel, go ahead and subscribe while you're down there liking it. And as always, thanks for watching, and see you in the next episode. Peace.